is a carbon footprint? It's basically the total amount of GHGs or greenhouse gases that are emitted by an individual or organization or a product or an event. Recently, there was a news that there is a carbon neutral baby. And what does it mean by carbon neutral baby is her parents ran certain calculations about if she lives for 60 years, how much of carbon is she going to emit in the atmosphere because of all her activities, and they planted equivalent amount of trees. So her parents planted somewhere around 6,000 trees to offset the carbon emissions that will be caused by this little girl till the time she is on this planet. What does this carbon footprint include? It actually includes everything right from our breathing. But if we look at the operations, it includes the fuel cost, then it also includes the gases that we use, the transport that we are utilizing. It includes the recycling, the electricity, all of these things that we are using and which are emitting any of those 7 gases account to our GHG emissions, and they contribute to the carbon footprint of that particular individual or organization or the product or the event. So how do we calculate? So basically a sum. We add up all the emissions at every stage of the product or the service's life, emissions from manufacturing, use, material production, and end of life. So we kind of combine all the emissions the way this carbon neutral baby, which whose parents have done that, they have taken into consideration all her possible activities if she lives for some time for X amount of years, and then they have back calculated how many trees are required to offset or to absorb that much of an impact. So this is about how do we calculate the carbon footprint of whatever we are emitting in the form of those 7 gases will go there. Now, why should we do this? Why should we track our carbon footprint? As it is said, you can only improve what you measure and monitor. So if you want to improve your carbon footprint, if you want to be less on the carbon footprint, you need to start tracking. First thing first, obviously compliance. There are many compliances which are now mandatory for the organizations imposed that we have to measure and track our carbon footprints. So SECR is in the UK, SEC reporting is in the US, then again CSR in the European Union, TFCD is globally approved, CDP is also globally approved. We have GRI, which is Global Reporting Initiative, we have ISO 14001, and then we also have BRSR, which is the SEBI initiative. BRSR and GRI are working very, very closely in order to improve the reporting mechanisms. So they come up with their mandates very frequently. There are changes in the policies very frequently. Now, people who are in this domain, already working in the domain, at times they tend to get frustrated when BRSR, when SEBI comes up with amendments in the BRSR reporting. But this is a new area. Reporting and tracking is relatively new, even for the industry and for the policymakers. They keep on coming with the updates or with additional requirements, only to ensure that no greenwashing happens and people are reporting correctly. Beyond compliances, of course, we have stakeholders. The customers these days are demanding lower carbon footprint. And if you remember the Apple ad wherein we had Mother Earth joining the board meeting and asking questions about how they are, how we are doing it. But beyond advertising also, now a lot of customers are demanding lower carbon footprint components, because now we have quite sensitive customer base all across. They understand the importance of the carbon emissions. They also understand the impact that GHG emissions have on our daily lives. Investors, obviously, unless and until you are sustainable, until the business is sustainable, investments are difficult to flow in. And nowadays, investors are not investors are looking at not only the balance sheets but also the BRSR reports before they commit any investments. They genuinely want to see if the companies are compliant enough, they are sustainable enough to invest. Employees, similar to customers, nowadays even employees are very much climate savvy, and they prefer to work with organizations who have certain commitments towards sustainability. My past experience is that when you engage employees in the sustainability activities, be it the CSR, even something as simple as planting a tree or deweeding, the employee satisfaction actually goes up really, really high. Last but not the least, the regulators, they are definitely demanding a lot of compliances related to carbon footprint, because the carbon footprint, although it is contributed by the higher income sections of the society, A lot of times the people who are impacted are from the lower factions of the society, and that's an area where a lot of things can go wrong. Just to give an example, very recently, one village in Goa, they refused and they refused vehemently to have a railway station in their village, planning for a station in their village, and the entire village stood against it, saying that it is going to destroy the peace of the village. They are very happy wherever they are. Having a railway station will definitely create a lot of pollution in and around the village. It will also put unnecessary burden on the village ecosystem. So this is something which is happening all around us. Everyone is now quite educated in terms of climate that way, and people are definitely demanding companies to be uh, more compliant towards the carbon footprint. Now, last but not the least, very important is the new opportunities. So having the GHG and carbon footprint monitoring in place, opportunities is definitely something which the companies are doing. Uh, for example, better asset management. Who doesn't want to manage the assets better? There was a time when assets used to lie just there, and no one was looking at it. It starts with the land, the water, the electricity, and of course the machinery and all. The facility management team simply ignored the underutilized or unutilized machines, the machines which were consuming more water, more energy. When you start reporting, all these places are identified and they can be improved, which definitely impacts the bottom lines of the company because it is reducing the cost. Adoption of new technologies to reduce carbon footprint, which definitely leads to higher efficiencies and other processes. I'll just give an example from the data centers. The data centers which deploy a very state of the art kind of building management systems, they eventually tend to reduce their water and energy footprint, eventually reducing the carbon footprint and, of course, a lot of cost which is incurred there. Technologies like waterless cooling, when they go for these technologies, again their efficiency levels are higher, their costs go on the lower side. Last, the area where I work a lot is the utilization of renewable energy to reduce the total energy cost. Since I work a lot on hydrogen, my calculations basically show that the OPEX for switching from diesel to green hydrogen, not even the grey hydrogen, but the green hydrogen, is in our part of the world, it is definitely favorable. So these things directly add value to the company's balance sheet. They impact the financials directly, and that's where it is very, very important to understand what is our carbon footprint, what is it that is adding to the carbon emissions, and how do we reduce those. Few other examples could be travel. When employees travel from one place to other, maybe for on-site purpose or for any other meetings, there is a cost associated with it because you need to book the airline, you need to book the hotel, etc., etc. And of course, there is a heavy carbon footprint because of the transport and logistics. So when the companies start looking at all this data and they start questioning whether these employees really required to travel, can we manage this in the online setup? Do we have enough engagement with the other parties to have these conversations online? A lot of cost can be saved over there. So it's not just about saving the carbon footprint, it is also about saving money, direct dollars here. Moving on from the compliances, stakeholder expectations, and new opportunities, what do we mean by corporate sustainability and how it is linked to the GHG accounting? So when we talk about carbon sustainability, corporate sustainability, it is more about is this business really sustainable? Can it survive the uh, the market, the geopolitics, the changes, the shifts in the customer demand? We all talk about Gen Zs and their purchase patterns when we talk about the business around us. So, how does this carbon accounting and the ESG compliances impact and how they interlink? One is uh, when we do carbon accounting, which is basically a technique that all the analysts and the management teams they're using to understand what is my carbon emission, both direct and indirect. That when you measure it and when you start tracking it, you understand which are the areas where we are emitting higher, which are the areas where we can reduce the emissions, and what are the costs of it. Just few definitions. When we talk about ESG, ESG means environmental, social, and governance. In my over 2 decades of WorkX, I have seen ESG to be evolving from with multiple names. Initially, it was only green practices. It started with environment impact. SMG is a very recent addition. Then we had UN SDGs, 17 core SDGs, which were divided. And of course, I've also seen this sustainability and ESG to be moving across. Initially, when I started, it was something which was standing outside the boardroom. Last 7 8 years, ESG got a corner seat in the boardroom, but now ESG, the sustainability, is something which sits at the table, and the sustainability professionals are consulted before taking any business decision for that matter. All the organizations and funds are definitely using the ESG frameworks to manage their risks and opportunities. So when you look at the ESG framework, definitely understand what are the risks to my business and what are the opportunities for me. As we discussed, for someone who is into again, I'll go back to green hydrogen because that's my current business. But very recently, Mr. Gadkari and the other members from the cabinet, they flagged the pilot projects for green hydrogen transport. There were multiple pilots even before that on batteries, battery powered vehicles. What happens is when the customers look at all these things and when they look at the frameworks, they are definitely trying to look at the opportunities to reduce the operating costs, to reduce the capex, and to make the business more sustainable. And when we have very strong frameworks in place, these kind of opportunities are definitely seen to reduce the operating costs and to manage the risks that could arise because of non-compliances, obviously. And nowadays, the regulators in many jurisdictions, they need the organizations to disclose their GHG emissions. So like in India, we have SEBI, who has mandated BRSR reporting for first 250 top 250 companies for FY25. Eventually, they want to bring top 1,000 companies in the mandatory disclosure on GHG emissions. And it's not just disclosure; it is also their plan to impact the net zero ambitions of the entire nation. So we have a net zero goal of 2070 as a nation, and how these companies are going to contribute to that goal, whether they're aligning or they're not aligning, everything they need to disclose. And a lot of times, what happens is sustainability is seen as a cost center by the organizations, and they tend to look at it from that aspect, which can derail the decarbonization efforts of the organization as a whole. So that's where it is linked to the publishing or disclosing the emission data.